Have you ever wondered about the true nature of respect? Is it something we can demand, chase after, or cleverly acquire? Picture a man standing rigidly before the still, glassy surface of a lake, his voice sharp as he shouts commands at his own reflection. He desperately desired the echo to return words of praise, for the watery image to mirror back profound admiration, perhaps even to kneel in humble reverence before him. Yet, the echo, faithful and unyielding, only repeated his own harsh words, and the water, a perfect mirror, only showed him the reality of what he was in that moment. Could this simple scene hold a timeless secret about respect? What if, as the ancient wisdom of Zen and Buddhist teachings suggests, genuine respect cannot be hunted down, purchased with wealth, or manipulated into existence? What if it flows, naturally and effortlessly, only to those who undertake the profound journey of mastering their inner world, diligently removing the subtle poisons that block their inherent light? This, indeed, is the fundamental nature of respect. It mirrors not who one demands to be, but who one painstakingly, authentically becomes, in the serene and insightful path illuminated by Zen and Buddhist philosophies. Respect is not a prize to be won through external striving. It is not a seed you can simply plant and expect to grow without tending to the soil. Instead, it is the fragrant fruit, born from a tree cultivated with inner diligence. To earn it, one must first courageously turn inwards and diligently read the often unseen landscape of the self. As the timeless Dharmapada so eloquently states, if a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. Now, if we were to replace the word happiness with respect in that profound verse, the essential truth remains powerfully unchanged. This journey, this teaching, is less about what new qualities to gain, and far more about what deeply ingrained patterns we must be willing to let go of. Respect, you see, is the natural, inevitable consequence of inner purity, and that purity, paradoxically, is most often found not through addition, but through courageous subtraction. Let us now, together, journey into the heart of 5 such destructive habits that must gently vanish from our lives before true, lasting respect can blossom forth. 1. The habit of speaking more than listening. Words, like autumn leaves, are often easy to offer, scattered freely with little thought. But silence, true attentive silence, requires a deep well of inner strength. So many among us speak primarily to impress, to defend a fragile ego, or to subtly control the space and the narrative around them. Yet, it is those who cultivate the art of profound listening who often carry the real, unspoken power. Imagine, if you will, a quiet monastery, nestled serene amidst mist-covered mountains. A young, eager disciple once interrupted his wise master not once, not twice, but thrice during a single, brief conversation. The master, with an almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips, never once corrected him, never chided his impulsiveness. After their conversation concluded, he gently beckoned the disciple to follow him to a nearby stream. They sat there for a long while, the only sound the gentle murmuring of water over stones. "Tell me," the master finally asked, his voice as calm as the stream itself, "why do you think this stream flows so freely, so effortlessly?" The disciple, eager to impress, quickly replied, "Because it is always moving forward." "Master," the master shook his head softly. "No," he corrected, his gaze fixed on the flowing water. "It is because it listens to the land. It yields to the contours. It follows the natural path. The very first habit, then, that erodes the foundations of respect is this tendency towards speaking too much, especially when one's words spring forth from the restless ego rather than from a place of quiet wisdom. People often mistake the volume of their noise for the weight of their significance. But the truly wise, like a skilled jeweler, measure their words as if they were grains of precious gold. To earn genuine respect, one must learn to speak only when the moment truly calls for words, and to allow silence, with its profound depth, to do its own sacred, transformative work, the act of speaking recklessly, of filling every available space with one's own voice, often stems from a deep-seated attachment to a carefully constructed self-image. One desperately wants to be seen, to be heard, to be admired, but the more a person attempts to force their presence upon others through an incessant stream of speech, the more the true essence, their inner light, becomes diluted and obscured. Zen philosophy teaches us that even the loudest, most majestic waterfall begins its journey as a single, silent drop of water. True listening creates space. Space, in turn, invites trust, and trust, patiently cultivated, is the fertile ground from which genuine respect naturally grows. Let this be a gentle reflection for us all. Endeavor to speak only when your words are demonstrably more valuable than the silence they would break. 2. The insidious habit of seeking validation from others. The desire to be liked, to be approved of, is a subtle and often cunning force within us. It frequently wears the noble cloak of kindness, of helpfulness, even of selfless generosity, but if we look deeper, its true root is often a persistent craving, an almost unquenchable thirst for external approval and validation. This underlying need, however well disguised, inevitably corrupts the pure intention behind our actions. Consider the tale of a student who once approached an old, wise monk, his heart heavy with a familiar ache. "Master," he asked, his voice tinged with confusion, "why is it that I often feel invisible, even though I dedicate myself to always pleasing others, to meeting their every expectation?" The monk, without uttering a single word, simply pointed to a solitary candle burning steadily in the dim light of the room. "Look at the candle," he said softly. "It fills the entire room with its warm light, yet it asks for nothing in return. It demands no applause, seeks no validation. It simply burns from within, from its own true nature." The second habit, therefore, that we must gently but firmly remove from our lives is this pervasive hunger for external validation. When our actions stem primarily from the deep-seated need to be accepted or admired, they subtly transform into forms of manipulation, however unintentional, and true respect, the kind that endures and enriches, is never born from manipulation. It is always, without exception, born from unwavering truth and authenticity. In Buddhist philosophy, this relentless seeking is closely tied to the concept of tanha, often translated as thirst or craving. This insatiable thirst for validation binds one inextricably to the cycle of suffering. Every word of praise received becomes another link in a subtle chain of attachment. And every piece of criticism, however small, can feel like a sharp blade to the heart. A person caught in this cycle becomes like a puppet, their movements and emotions dictated by the ever-shifting strings of public opinion. Zen, in contrast, speaks of mushin, often described as the state of no mind or nothingness, where action is pure, spontaneous, and entirely free from attachment to any particular outcome. The teaching is clear. Do good not to be seen or praised, but simply because it is in your nature to do so. Live your life not to be applauded by the crowd, but to be deeply aligned with your own inner truth. For, in a beautiful paradox, to actively seek respect is often the surest way to lose it. And to forget about the pursuit of respect, focusing instead on cultivating your inner world, is often the most direct path to genuinely gaining it. Free the corrosive habit of gossiping and judging. In almost every human gathering, from the most casual to the most formal, stories inevitably fly, and all too often, those stories carry someone else's name, someone else's perceived flaws or private life upon their wings. Gossip frequently disguises itself as light-hearted entertainment, as feigned concern, or even, at times, as a misguided sense of justice. But if we peel back these superficial layers, at its very root, gossip almost always lies in the fertile ground of ego and the corrosive habit of comparison. A wise monk once observed, his words carrying the weight of profound understanding, each time you carry the dirt of another person in your mouth, your own breath will inevitably stink with disrespect. The third habit, then, that utterly crushes any hope of genuine respect is this compulsion to speak about others' faults, their struggles, or the intimate details of their lives, especially when done without their presence, without a constructive purpose, or worse, with ill intent. The act of judgment, while it may pretend to elevate the speaker by diminishing another, in reality, only serves to reveal the speaker's own deep-seated insecurities and inner turmoil. Gossip is a form of karmic poison. It not only harms the person being spoken about, but also inevitably entangles the speaker in a sticky web of disharmony and negative energy. Buddhist teachings place great emphasis on the practice of right speech, words that are consistently true, inherently kind, genuinely necessary, and spoken at the appropriate, timely moment. When one speaks ill of others, even subtly or through insinuation, listeners, consciously or unconsciously, grow cautious. A thought flickers in their minds. If he speaks so freely of them today, will he perhaps speak of me in a similar fashion tomorrow? In that moment of fear and mistrust, respect dissolves like morning mist under the harsh sun. Zen advises us to treat every word we utter as if it were a stone thrown into a still pond. The ripples, whether of kindness or cruelty, will invariably reach farther than the hand that released it. To be truly respected, make it your practice to speak of ideas, of principles, of aspirations, not merely of people and their perceived failings. Endeavor to speak in ways that uplift, that inspire, that heal, not in ways that unravel, diminish, or destroy. For the undermining habit of being unreliable and untruthful. Trust is the absolute bedrock upon which all genuine respect is built. Without it, any admiration one might receive is hollow, fragile, and ultimately meaningless. A person may appear outwardly powerful, undeniably charming, or remarkably skilled, but if their word cannot be consistently trusted, if their promises are frequently broken, then respect flees from them like mist vanishing in the bright morning sunlight. There is a story told of a novice monk who was once given a single, seemingly simple task by his master: to wake precisely at dawn each day and strike the temple gong, its resonant sound calling the other monks to meditation. For a few days, he was exact, his commitment unwavering. Then, one cool morning, he overslept. The master, observing this lapse, said nothing. Days turned into weeks. Eventually, the task of striking the gong was returned to him, but the subtle seed of unreliability had already been planted in the minds of his fellow monks. Later, when the monks gathered to discuss important temple matters, none looked to him for his opinion. His voice, when he offered it, was largely ignored, not as a form of overt punishment, but because his word, his commitment, no longer echoed with the necessary weight of dependability. The fourth destructive habit we must strive to eliminate, therefore, is this pattern of inconsistency in our words and our deeds. Buddhist morality speaks eloquently of sila, which encompasses ethical conduct and moral integrity. One who lives consistently in sila gradually builds invisible, yet incredibly strong, temples of respect all around them, every promise faithfully kept, every truth courageously upheld, serves to strengthen the walls of these sacred temples. Being unreliable is not merely about occasionally missing tasks or forgetting appointments. At its core, it is about a profound disconnection from one's own integrity. True respect naturally follows those who act with consistency and honor, even when no one is watching. It gravitates towards those who show up fully and authentically, even when there is no obvious reward in sight. It is drawn to those whose speech and actions are seamlessly, beautifully one. To earn lasting respect, strive to become the kind of person whose word is more solid, more dependable than stone. 5. The isolating habit of displaying arrogance or superiority. Consider the humble seed. No seed truly grows by proudly standing above the soil, proclaiming its own importance. It must first enter the dark, yielding, humble ground, surrendering itself to the unknown. Arrogance, in stark contrast, constantly seeks to dominate, to prove its perceived worth through relentless comparison. It speaks in tones heavy with, "I know better," "I am superior," "I did more." And each of these self-aggrandizing pronouncements, like a sharp axe, severs the delicate roots of genuine human connection. In a certain monastery, there was a monk who frequently corrected others, always eager to display his extensive knowledge, to highlight his intellectual prowess. The master observed this behavior in patient silence. One day, during the quiet morning meditation, the master calmly passed a cup of exceptionally bitter tea to this particular monk. "This," he said softly, "is brewed from the essence of your recent tone. Drink it." The monk took a sip and visibly winced at the acrid taste. The master then leaned closer and whispered, "Now, perhaps, you understand how others often feel when you speak to them from that place of perceived superiority. The final habit, then, that we must diligently work to remove is this insidious sense of superiority. This air of arrogance. Arrogance is almost always born from illusion, the mistaken belief that the self is somehow separate from and inherently higher than others. In the profound view of Zen, all things are fundamentally one, interconnected aspects of a single, indivisible reality. No single wave in the vast ocean is better than another. For each individual wave rises and falls with the same great, unified ocean. Buddhist teachings consistently remind us that pride, like a thick veil, blinds the clear eye of wisdom. It is often the humble, those who are open and receptive, who carry the greatest, most resilient strength. They listen attentively, they learn continuously, they grow organically, and they connect authentically. Respect, true respect, cannot be forced or demanded. It bows, willingly and naturally, only to those who themselves bow with humility and reverence to the profound mystery of life. The bamboo, a symbol often revered in Zen, offers us a beautiful lesson in this regard. A man once came to a renowned Zen master and declared, "Master, I desperately want to be respected by all. Please, teach me how." The master, instead of offering a lengthy discourse, simply pointed to a tall, graceful bamboo stalk swaying gently in the breeze nearby. "What do you see?" he asked the man. "It is tall, strong, and beautifully green," the man replied. "And is it respected?" the master inquired. "Yes," said the man. "All who see it admire its elegance and its grace. Then learn from it," the master instructed. "Observe its qualities. It is hollow on the inside, which means it is empty and receptive, always ready to listen. It bends with the wind, which means it knows how to yield, how to be flexible without breaking. It grows slowly, meticulously, segment by segment, which means it embodies patience. And it stands tall, not to be seen or to dominate the landscape, but because it naturally reaches for the nurturing light of the sun." The man, contemplating these words, slowly nodded in understanding. Respect, you see, is not something one magically earns in a fleeting moment of triumph or display. It is, rather, something one gradually becomes over a lifetime, through the diligent, often challenging, process of removing those obscurations, those inner poisons, that dim our inherent light. Respect is, in essence, the undeniable shadow cast by a well-cultivated character. The Zen path does not teach us to endlessly chase after the fleeting approval of the world, but rather to courageously embark on the profound journey of mastering the self. And when the self is truly mastered, when inner harmony is achieved, the world, in its own time, naturally bows in acknowledgement. Respect, authentic and enduring, inevitably follows those who live with unwavering truth, who listen more than they speak, who rise without the need for comparison, and who love without demanding conditions. Let these 5 destructive habits, then, be like incense, slowly burned away in the fire of your growing awareness. Let the dissipating smoke carry your old, limiting ways to the 4 winds, leaving behind a cleaner, purer space within. Strive to speak less and listen more. Seek no external approval, finding validation instead from within. Consciously avoid the allure of gossip and judgment. Be impeccably reliable in word and deed. And above all, stay humble, always open to learning and growing. Then, simply watch, with quiet patience, as respect naturally begins to walk beside you, not because you arrogantly demanded it, but because you forgot about its pursuit and, in doing so, became truly worthy of it. As the old Zen saying so beautifully puts it, when the flower blooms, the bees come uninvited, and as we cultivate this inner garden, tending to the soil of our character and uprooting these unhelpful habits, we begin to notice not only a shift in how others perceive us, but more profoundly, a transformation in how we experience ourselves and the world around us. This journey of self-mastery is ongoing, and the path of respect has many subtle layers, each revealing deeper truths as we walk it with diligence and an open heart. Indeed, the aim is to let your very life become that unpretentious flower, effortlessly radiating the silent, fragrant echo of respect. Consider the mighty river. It never clamors for praise, yet all thirst is gratefully quenched by its life-giving waters. Think of the steadfast trees. They never demand admiration or applause, yet all creatures instinctively seek their cool, protective shade in the blistering heat. In precisely the same way, a person who diligently, patiently sheds the subtle impurities of ego, the heavy cloak of pride, and the restless chains of craving, naturally becomes a sanctuary for others, not through conscious intention or forceful design, but by the very essence of their transformed being. Respect, as so profoundly taught in the contemplative traditions of Zen and Buddhist thought, is not some common commodity to be bartered for or traded in the noisy marketplace of words and grand gestures. Rather, it is the delicate, lingering fragrance that remains in the air long after the beautiful flower itself has been forgotten. It arrives not when one desperately shouts, "Look at me, admire me," but when one lives in such a way, with such quiet integrity and authentic presence, that others find themselves whispering in genuine admiration, "Let us learn from him. Let us understand her ways." So, let us now revisit these 5 crucial habits we've begun to explore. It's important to see them not as a rigid set of rules to be mechanically memorized, but rather as internal fires, fires of misunderstanding, of ego, of conditioned reaction that we must gently, patiently, and persistently learn to extinguish within ourselves. First, we recall the habits of speaking more than listening, that pervasive noise which so often conceals true wisdom. The more one speaks from the agitated surface of the mind, from the need to assert or defend, the more the profound depths of inner knowing remain tragically undiscovered, both by the speaker and by those around them. In the sacred crucible of silence, a different kind of intelligence, a deeper understanding is born. To truly listen without that compulsive urge to immediately formulate a reply, to correct or to interject one's own story, is a powerful practice that begins to dissolve the very bedrock of the ego. Most people, wouldn't you agree, speak primarily to be right, to win an argument, to feel validated. Comparatively few listen with the pure, open intention to genuinely understand another's perspective, another's heart. The one who masters the art of deep listening often becomes a trusted keeper of many hearts, a safe haven for others' truths. Conversely, the one who consistently speaks too much, who dominates every conversation, soon finds their presence becoming subtly, then obviously exhausting to others, and they are often, sadly, avoided. Imagine each word as a deliberate step upon a sacred path. Strive to walk, to speak, only when it is truly necessary, when your words can bring clarity, kindness, or healing. And for the rest of the time, learn to rest deeply, contentedly, in the profound wisdom of silence. Second, we address the habits of seeking validation from others, those invisible yet incredibly strong chains of approval that can bind us so tightly. The very moment a person acts primarily to be seen, to be noticed, to gain applause, their authentic self, their true essence, begins to wither. Every gesture, however well-intentioned on the surface, can subtly become a piece of theater. Every act of kindness, if tainted by the need for reciprocation or recognition, transforms into an unspoken contract. One then lives not for the sake of truth, not for the joy of genuine connection, but for the fleeting, hollow echo of applause. This, make no mistake, is a form of deep suffering, often cleverly disguised as selfless service or noble generosity. True, unadulterated joy and the respect that naturally flows from it arise when one simply does what must be done, with a full heart, not to be liked or praised, but simply because it is right, because it aligns with one's deepest values. Remember the candle, it burns brightly, illuminating all corners of the room, without ever asking who sees its light, without ever demanding acknowledgement for its warmth. Third, we explored the destructive nature of gossip and judgment, that sharp-edged tongue that, in its recklessness, invariably cuts both ways, harming both the speaker and the spoken about. Words uttered about others in their absence, especially those tinged with negativity or criticism, almost always reflect more about the inner state of the speaker, their insecurities, their fears, their unhealed wounds, than they do about the actual subject of the gossip. Every piece of idle gossip, every harsh judgment passed, is, in essence, a silent confession of one's own inner unrest, a projection of one's own unresolved shadows. Those who judge others with unrelenting harshness are often merely expressing the turbulent storms raging within themselves. And those who patiently listen to such words, even if they don't actively participate, often find their trust in the one who speaks them slowly, irrevocably eroding. Gossip, like a toxic weed, poisons the very soil where the delicate flower of respect might otherwise have grown. Therefore, make it a conscious practice. Speak only if your words can help to build a temple of understanding and compassion, not if they are likely to tear one down. Fourth, we confronted the habit of being unreliable and untruthful, that cracked, leaking vessel of trust which can never truly hold the pure water of respect. Promises, in these teachings, are considered sacred bonds. Once broken, even if unintentionally, the crack that appears in one's integrity is incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible, to fully seal. Genuine respect naturally walks alongside those whose actions are as firm and dependable as the ancient mountains, and whose commitments are as predictable and steadfast as the rising sun. Those individuals who consistently fail to do what they say, whose words and deeds are frequently misaligned, are soon forgotten by those seeking reliability. Or worse, they are remembered primarily as sources of disappointment and broken trust. The world may offer its fleeting attention to the loud, the flashy, the demanding, but it reserves its deep, abiding trust, and therefore its true respect, only for the consistently reliable. Far better, then, to promise nothing and deliver everything with grace and integrity, than to grandly promise everything and ultimately deliver little more than empty words and disappointment. And fifth, we examined the isolating habit of displaying arrogance or superiority, that fine, insidious dust that, when allowed to accumulate, blinds the very eye of the soul, preventing us from seeing our true interconnectedness. To think oneself inherently superior to others is akin to sitting precariously on a throne meticulously constructed of sand. The strong, inevitable wind of reality, of truth, will always come, and that fragile throne will surely crumble. The truly respectful and respected ones are not those who loudly proclaim, "I know, I have all the answers," but rather those who humbly, honestly say, "I am still learning, I am open to growing." Humility, in its truest sense, is not about thinking less of oneself, but about thinking less about oneself, shifting the focus from the ego's constant demands to a broader, more compassionate awareness. The proud, by their very nature, demand respect, often through intimidation or self-aggrandizement. The humble, through their quiet authenticity and genuine openness, naturally attract it. Consider the tallest tree in the forest. It is often the one that knows how to bow gracefully to the storm. And because of its flexibility, it survives and continues to thrive. So, what is the path forward from here? Having recognized these habits within ourselves, it lies in consistent practice, not in the elusive pursuit of perfection. Zen philosophy does not ask for an impossible, flawless perfection. It simply, gently invites us into a state of ever-deepening awareness, Even a single, conscious drop of awareness, consistently applied, can begin to purify a vast, turbulent ocean of deeply ingrained habit. These 5 habits, let us be clear, will likely not vanish in a single day or even a week, but every single day that they are mindfully observed, every time they are recognized without judgment as they arise, they begin to weaken their hold upon us. Every time you consciously pause before speaking, allowing a moment for reflection, every time you give freely from the heart, without that subtle craving for applause or recognition, every moment you actively refuse to pass a harsh judgment, either on another or on yourself, in each of these small, courageous acts, you are patiently, lovingly polishing the mirror of your soul. And when that inner mirror begins to shine with its own inherent clarity and purity, others will naturally see themselves, and you, reflected with a newfound sense of clarity, understanding, and peace. That is precisely when true, lasting respect is born, not from fear, not from fame or fortune, but from a deep, resonant connection, from a shared sense of humanity. Imagine, for a moment, a person who truly lives by these profound yet simple teachings. They may speak little, choosing their words with care, but when they do speak, their words invariably carry the weight of truth and the warmth of compassion. They act without fanfare, without any need for external validation, yet their actions consistently uplift and inspire those around them. They may remain largely unknown to the wider world, yet those fortunate enough to cross their path, to experience their quiet presence, never truly forget them. This person, through their dedicated inner work, becomes like an unseen garden, a garden not advertised with loud signs, not enclosed by high fences, not labeled with pretentious titles, but simply, breathtakingly beautiful in its natural, unforced presence. In such a garden, birds instinctively come to sing the joyful melodies. Butterflies arrive unbidden to dance among the blossoms, and the gentle breeze lingers, carrying with it a sense of peace and serenity. Such a one does not actively seek respect, for the very idea is foreign to their nature. Yet, respect lives in their shadow, follows their every step, and lingers palpably in their absence, like a sweet, enduring fragrance. To become this kind of person, to cultivate such an inner garden, is not a distant, unattainable dream. It is, rather, a dedicated, ongoing practice. It is the practice of gently removing, of patiently subtracting, of courageously emptying ourselves of all that is not true, all that is not authentic. Zen, in its profound wisdom, does not seek to fill the cup of the mind with yet more knowledge, more concepts, more rules. Instead, it lovingly, patiently empties the cup, so that true wisdom, direct and experiential, may spontaneously pour in. To be truly respected, then, is not to be feared or to be held in awe due to external power or status. It is to be deeply understood, to be implicitly trusted, and to be quietly, genuinely revered for the essence of who you are. This, perhaps, is the highest form of success one can aspire to. Not a success measured in outward appearances or material acquisitions, but a success found in the very essence of one's being, not a success achieved through force or manipulation, but one that unfolds naturally, like a river flowing effortlessly to the sea, live so gently, with such mindful presence, that even the silence around you seems to listen, act so purely, with such unblemished intention, that even your shadows seem to bow in reverence, and speak so wisely, with such heartfelt truth, that even the wind itself seems eager to carry your words to those who need to hear them. That, in its beautiful simplicity, is the path, that is the essence of Zen, that is the deep, unshakable root of all true and lasting respect. Thank you so much for journeying with us through these reflections today. We sincerely hope this exploration of ancient wisdom has resonated with you and offered some valuable insights for your own path. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, we would be incredibly grateful if you would consider subscribing to our channel for more content like this, designed to inspire and support your journey of personal growth and inner peace. Please don't forget to click that subscribe button below, and also hit the notification bell so you never miss an update or a new video from us. We also warmly invite you to leave a comment below, share your thoughts, your experiences, or perhaps let us know what topics you'd like to see us explore in future videos. We deeply value your presence in our community. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.